Hello, my name is Felix. I've traveled from far away to be with you today and talk about remote working, more specifically my lessons learned doing software development remotely. I've been a full stack developer for 8 years, working mostly for different startups of various sizes in different industries, mostly in educational and training, but nowadays in biotech. I've always been involved with full stack development doing Python and JavaScript. I'm also a long-time Ruby user, but don't tell anyone because this is a Python conference. I'm originally from Sweden, from Stockholm, but 2 years ago I moved to Germany, to its capital city Berlin. And in almost every job and project that I've been involved with throughout my career, there has been a component of remote working, which is why I'm here to talk about it. I've been in many different remote working setups. I've either worked for companies with offices in different countries, so teams have to work on tasks across the globe. I've freelanced with clients where we've been in the same city, but we have not shared an office. I've also worked in fully distributed teams where no member is in the same room, let alone in the same city. And I've also been in teams where most members share an office, but some of them sometimes work a couple of times remotely, like a couple of times every month remotely. In other words, I've seen and done the full spectrum of remote work, from partially to fully distributed. Currently, I'm working for a Berlin-based startup called Zagino. Zagino is a biotech marketplace where scientists can order all their lab materials and life science research supplies. We have around 10 million products in the database. They do about 1 day a week remotely, usually from a co-working space called Beta House, where I'm a long-time member. And sometimes I go back to Sweden, where I'm from, and there, when I go back, I usually take the chance to do some remote working as well. This setup works great. Why? I get to escape the full buzz of an open office. I think all of you in here know what I'm talking about. At Zagino, we are around 40 people spread out in different teams. There's tech, product management, content management, customer support and sales, customer service, finance, sales, and HR. Escaping the distractions of an open office allows me to immerse myself into the tasks that require a lot of focus. That results in a higher quality in my work output. Zagino is a company with branches in 2 countries, US and Germany. So right from the get-go there is a natural component of remote work, since teams in both countries sometimes have to work together. Before we begin, I would like to mention a definition of remote work. A situation in which an employee works from home or another location away from the company workplace and communicates with the company via email, telephone, or other tools. In other words, no face-to-face communication. And this is the perspective I will use throughout this talk. And the purpose of this talk and my vision for it is to share with you the ideas and the lessons I've learned along the way. I want to give you ideas, share my experiences so you can improve the remote working setup you have in your organizations today, or give you an idea on how to introduce it on a small scale and hopefully be successful enough so you can grow remote working in your organization. So let's break this down. My talk will touch on the following: tools, tools you need to use and how you need to use them to succeed working remotely; transparency, why it is important and how to attain it; the game changer, one absolute game changer when it comes to remote working. I put this kind of in the middle so you won't fall asleep halfway through. I'm going to talk about handovers across the world. There are some interesting aspects to working across large time zone differences. I'm going to talk about how to continuously improve the work process. I'm going to talk about culture and the importance of culture and its key factors and how to build culture for remote work. And finally, some blue sky thinking and my wishes for the future. So let's begin. Tools, tools, tools. There are lots of tools available. They come in all shapes and sizes, different price points aimed at different audiences. Where do you start? What do you need to do? I suggest that you start within your team, gather past experiences from your team members. This can prove to be very valuable. What have they used before? Is there a tool or process that worked well in particular? Cover your bases and make sure you have a solid foundation to do software development remotely. You need tools for group chat, video calls, issue tracking, code review, and it all needs to be done in a digital way. And don't forget to compare integrations and think about what they can do to further improve the setup. Throughout the years, I've used a ton of tools to communicate and manage projects, and I'm sure you all in here have done as well. Don't we all recognize most of these logos? I've used Flowdoc or Slack for group chatting. I've used Drive and Dropbox to share architectural designs and system drawings. I've used Zeppelin and InVision to share UI designs and UX prototypes. I've done video meetings, both large and one-on-ones with Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts, Google Meet, you name it. Also in various WebRTC solutions, in-browser WebRTC solutions. Also, regular phone calls work surprisingly well, so don't stare yourself blind at what the cloud has to offer. For keeping track of current work and prioritizing work, I've used Pivotal Tracker and Jira. As a rule of thumb, always with an integration to the group chat tool, because you want your tools to work together. You don't want to spend time switching between them to see what's new. In my experience, I don't think the actual choice of tool is the most important one. Flowdoc or Slack, Jira, Pivotal Tracker, all of these tools come with their own set of advantages and disadvantages. It all comes down to experience and what you and your team are used to using. My advice here is to experiment and focus on improving the way you use your tools rather than the tools themselves. From time to time, take a moment to reflect on what's working well and what's not working well, what the pain points are. By pain points, I mean things that give you a headache or you find very annoying and you just want to fix them. And how do you best reflect? I suggest setting up a forum to have these discussions on a regular basis. It could, for instance, be a standing item on your sprint retrospective agenda. I can't stress this enough. Just picking tools and throwing them at your team is not going to cut it. Why? Because tools themselves are just that, tools. We all need to think about and take initiative on how we use these tools and form the processes around them to get value. For the group chat tool, you need to set up the right chat channels with clear purposes and right participants. Good examples are a channel for code review and technical discussions, one for release notifications from your build systems, war rooms for when things go really bad in production and you need to gather everyone to debug. And before that, you hopefully got a notification from your exception reporting tool. That's also good to gather in one channel. You need one for upcoming national holidays and for employer vacations. And one for location-specific channels. For instance, at Zagino, we have one for the Berlin office and one for the Boston office. And don't forget to have a banter channel. You need somewhere to post funny jokes and GIFs. Continuing with the group chat tool, to keep things tidy and organized, remember to archive old channels. Archive things in general that you don't use. It could be, for instance, documents that are still valuable but no one really reads them. It could be repositories that no one actively contributes to or depend on. If you started to use a tool that covers the need of another tool you already have, take the step to drop that old one. Try to lower the day-to-day fatigue by lowering the constant flow of information around you. Also remember to keep a balance. Don't overuse integrations and tweak notification settings, especially for Slack. It's a tool that is meant to make you more productive and not more distracted. Another thing worth giving a shot is running a dashboard. The advantage of a dashboard is that it gives you a quick overview of key project indicators or organization indicators, and it serves well for water cooler discussions. An example of widgets are a graph with production errors over time, so you can see if your releases actually fix more issues than it introduces. Number of open pull requests, status of QI environments, and by that I mean the name of the QI environment, which branch was deployed, when and by whom. And upcoming national holidays is also good. Make sure your dashboard is accessible over the internet, so all your remote colleagues can access it. If you have an office, I suggest that you install a monitor in each one of them, so you can have the dashboard on display. Having important key metrics on display will help you to improve transparency, and that is a nice segue into the next section. To successfully build a highly motivated and tight-knit team, you need to build morale and trust. A good way of achieving this is by sharing progress and praising accomplishments. An example of sharing progress is and attaining transparency is to post a short message. Could be 2 to 3 sentences about what you're working on. This should be phrased as a goal, detailing what you want to achieve for that day. It will help you to keep your focus and it will help others to understand what you're doing. I have some examples. Today I'm planning on finishing a fix for the bug about XYZ I found yesterday. Or today I'm starting to implement the new design of the homepage. The first step is to build the new menu widget. Then I suggest that at the end of the day you post a follow-up message about how it went. So for the first one it could be I finished the bug fix and open a pull request for it here and then a link to the pull request. And then for the other one, the menu widget is almost done. I still have some issues in Internet Explorer to iron out before I can open a PR. It's close to home. I believe transparency is key to a high-performing team. If you do this, you will lower the threshold to let your colleagues help each other out. You contribute to having less knowledge silos. And by knowledge silos, I mean that certain parts of a system is locked into certain team members' brains. Like no one else knows about these parts of a system. Everyone gets a chance to better understand what's going on and can manage expectations better. And now I have a little story about working remotely across continents. Let's dive a bit deeper into remote work with long distances. I think the most interesting and challenging period of my career was between 2012 and 2016, when I had the opportunity to work for a great organization, namely Avidity, who are sponsoring the conference today. Thank you very much. Avidity is an organization with presence in 2 countries, Sweden and Brazil. Back in 2012, I was one of the first employees of the Swedish branch. And this setup exposed me to a very interesting aspect of remote work. When teams are so spread out in vastly different time zones, so you only get a couple of hours overlap during a workday. I read that Brazil stopped observing daylight savings. Last clock change was back in February. Is that correct? Yes, it's correct. This is amazing. As software developers, we all know that less daytime complexity is better. The eastern part of the country will be on UTC-3 for the whole year. And the way that means the east coast of Brazil compared to Sweden between the last of March to end of October is 5 hours. So 9 in the morning in Brazil is 2 in the afternoon in Sweden. And then for the other part of the year, end of October to end of March, the difference is 4 hours. So 9 in the morning in Brazil is 1 in the afternoon in Sweden. This was a tad more complicated before February and back when I worked at Avidity. Then we had periods of time, we had 3, 4, and 5 hours because Brazil and Sweden used to observe daylight savings at different times of the year, which made it fairly complicated sometimes when you were on a video meeting and you tried to schedule a meeting for tomorrow or next week, like, what time is it then? I came to learn that this is both poses a problem, but also as a powerful opportunity. Many times I ended my day struggling to debug an issue in the code or not having enough time to polish a feature. And what would I do when the deadlines came close? I would hand this over to a colleague that had lots of hours left in a workday. And how would I do that? I would take 20 to 30 minutes at the end of my day, linked up to my colleague or video. I would explain what I was doing and how far I've come. I would share any other context, like third-party documentation or pivotal tracker story or anything like that. And then I would push my Git branch. The next day, when I returned, more often than not, my issue was resolved. Truly a miracle. Imagine if that was the things for other issues in life. You just, I don't know what to do with this. You just hand it over, and then next day it's resolved. Let me give you a more detailed example. Let's say I spent the last 2 days working on a new feature for an admin system, integrating a third-party API for processing invoices. Everything is working super fine, except for one weird issue where certain invoices are not being processed. There's an awkward bug. The error message I get is not making much sense. So I would link up with my colleague, give them a step-by-step instructions to reproduce the error, give them a link to the third-party documentation, answer any outstanding questions, and then my colleague would get to work and finish it. This also works the other way around. It's a bit trickier, since from the West, if you're in the Western time zone, there will be no live handover, so you can't have a discussion, you can't answer questions. You have to be more creative and rely on text messages, drawings, sharing code diffs. Written communication becomes much more important. Put effort in phrasing your summaries, so when you're handing over your work to your colleague, they can understand it. If they don't understand it, there will potentially be hours before you can come online again both together and discuss it. So to summarize, what to do and to make the handover as easily digestible as possible, take a minimal approach. Try to summarize the relevant context, limit the scope, explain what the actual core is that you're trying to do. Big plus if you have reproducible steps for bugs. And don't forget to git push. I've done this so many times. I made an excellent handover, answered all the questions, everything is super clear, and then I have 10 local commits that I haven't pushed. It's very hard to continue then. Why do all of this? If you can get this to work properly, you will unleash a powerhouse of potentially around-the-clock software development, especially if your team is spread out in multiple time zones. You will basically have a non-stop development cycle. Something I've tried with various success is taking this setup to the next level and use the overlapping hours with a colleague to do pair programming. There is a lot to factor in here to get good mileage out of this. You both need pair programming experience. You need good, stable internet. But what I feel is the key missing component here is the whiteboard. To me, the whiteboard is one of the most important tools when doing software development. I've tried various online drawing services, and they don't feel natural enough. I've tried sharing the whiteboard over webcam, which doesn't always really work. It's not collaborative, like one person is drawing and the other one is watching. And if you have sudden packet loss in your internet, or if you're in a meeting room with bad lighting, it's very hard to read what you're doing. There are other tools as well. Teammate, a fork of Tmax, for debugging is very powerful. Basically, Teammate allows you to have a shared terminal session with your colleague. So you both look at the same terminal. You can write commands, you can tail logs, you can talk about what you're doing. It's very powerful for debugging. What I want you to do here is to experiment. Try new things. Remember, the tools that you use when working remotely differ from the ones that you use when you're sitting next to each other. We've done it, folks. We reached the cliffhanger. Are you ready? It's the game changer. I'm dragging this out. So, now that we've covered working across the globe with large time zone differences, I will talk about the game changer. If you ever worked in a fully distributed team without meeting any one of the team members, you can attest to what I'm going to say next. When it comes to knowing your team members, improving chemistry, trust, productivity, and general happiness of the members of the team, and this is going to sound very obvious, it is to meet in person. So, however productive and happy we can be working remotely, with all the great tools, best-in-class leadership, perfected processes, there is truly a beneficial factor to meet in person at least once throughout the times. Actually feeling the energy, experiencing body language, volume, intonation, gestures, and every other detail that is part of human communication will enhance the remote working process. In many cases vastly, and you will see the differences immediately. So if possible, plan a yearly event, gather all team members into the same room, do some work, have dinners together, build strong relationships to further improve the remote working setup, team dynamics, and happiness levels for the next time you're not in the same room. As developers, we are all about continuous integration. Continuously iterating a product, continuously getting new things out to production quicker and more often. I want you to apply this to the way you work. Continuously improve your process, iterate it, continuously to improve it, and reflect about what you can do and what you can do better. If there is one takeaway that I want you to bring with you from this talk, is to allow for experimenting and reflecting over the work process. During your next retrospective, add a point to the agenda and talk about the remote aspect of the sprint. What worked really well and what didn't? Is there a lesson to be learned that can be taken into the future? Again, experiment. Iterate the work process. All factors of a project are subject to change. Team members come and go, people get new responsibilities, people change roles, so team dynamics change. Workload changes, can go from being more back-end heavy for a sprint to more front-end heavy for the next sprint. Different features require different expertise from different departments in your organization, so you will work with different people. Also, you learn things along the way. Utilize this and don't get stuck in old habits. I really want to push for continuously improving the work process. Spend time and think about how you are working with a project. There's always something that you can improve. Try to work smarter and not harder. So how do we experiment? A good way of testing out new ideas is to do it on a small scale. Everything you do doesn't have to be applied department-wide or organization-wide. Making experiments on a small scale involving few people allows you to more easily evaluate and adapt what you're doing. There is less overhead to introduce changes and adapt, which means that it's faster to iterate. When you have something that works, you can start bringing it into a bigger group and involve more people in your organization. An example of this was when I was part of a team where we wanted to introduce remote days. meaning most of the time we were working together in the same office, but we wanted to introduce remote working bit by bit on a regular schedule, starting with 1 day a week. At the time, me and my coworker were working very closely together on a few tasks. Throughout the days, we had spontaneous discussions, we programmed together, we looked at code together, we had whiteboard sessions, you know the drill, software development. Why did we want to do this? We wanted to get away from the distractions of an open office, so we could string together those focused hours you need to solve the difficult tasks that you have assigned. How did we do this? We chose a day, a couple of days before. So for instance, on a Monday, we chose, let's do remote working on Wednesday. And the days before that day, we prepared as much as possible. We tried to align our understanding of what we were doing. Do we have a working prototype? Is something broken? Do we have stories? Are they up to date? Otherwise, let's talk to the stakeholders. We wanted to be on the same page when the remote day came. We wanted to have a plan of what we wanted to achieve. So when the remote day came, we were ready to get some focused hours in. So on the remote day, we had a brief check-in in the morning, detailing our goal for the day, 2 to 3 sentences, as I mentioned when I talked about transparency. And then we got started. Detailing a goal helps you to commit to something. More often than not, our to-do lists grow long and vary, often with very different tasks. When you detail a goal, you change your mindset to focus on that. There's less risk of jumping around between the things that you have assigned to you because you feel stressed or overburdened and you want to make progress somewhere. So you just keep context switching and then you end up getting no progress done anywhere. The challenges we faced was that being remote makes your whole work situation more asynchronous. You can't poke someone for immediate answers. You have to be more specific when you ask for questions or ideas. What we gained was really focused days. Being away from the office helped us to stay away from the office noise and spontaneous meetings and all of that. Escaping the distractions worked. I think this is a good way to introduce a remote working setup. You start with 1 day a week, you thoughtfully adapt the way you work, and grow it from there. Once again, reflect on what's working and not. After that, involve more colleagues and spread the knowledge about what you're doing and let remote work grow in your organization. It all comes down to building a culture for remote work. It doesn't matter if your team is fully remote or partially remote. Having the right culture is equally important in order to be successful at hitting project targets and keeping team members happy. I think the key to establishing a successful remote working culture is to involve team members and allow them to experiment and iterate the work process. As I mentioned earlier, throughout the lifetime of a project, a lot of things change. People come and go, workload changes. Just sticking to one way of doing things is not going to get you the most value. Allowing to experiment will help you build a better functioning team that can produce higher quality work and be happier at the same time. What is also important and should not be forgotten is to remember to keep the praise flowing in the communication channels. This is recognize successful outcomes and give praise where praise is due. This is not only for managers to do, everyone should be involved. Scheduling one-on-one meetings and team meetings, one-on-one meetings between peers and managers, and then team meetings with the whole team, helps you to consistently find and detect concerns before they become issues, and keep the general well-being of the team members at a high level. Try to move away from the always on, always available mentality we have in society today. Allow people to turn off notifications and be unavailable so that they can focus on the tasks at hand. Constant distractions mean a penalty to your output. In order to do this, you need to have less knowledge silos in your organization, as I mentioned earlier. Circling back to what I said about tools and how you work, this is all part of the culture as well. Culture is not something you can write down. It is a concept of beliefs, thought processes, attitudes among employees and managers, as well as ideologies and principles of the organization. The sum of these aspects make up the culture of a company. And I'm almost done. Let's look at my wishes for the future. As tools become better, internet faster and stable in larger regions of the world, I think remote work is just going to become more and more popular than it is today. And we're all going to get better at it. What I want for the future is for someone to solve the whiteboard problem. To me, it is an extremely important tool when building software. It's the best tool at hand for visualizing and sharing ideas with your peers, and quickly. You can draw any shape and form, you can write text, you can erase, you can redo, and it's collaborative, so anyone can jump in. There should be a good set of practices in our industry about how you achieve transparency and build great culture, as well as a go-to list of tools to use. I wish for a thought-out procedure of how you best introduce new team members and get them up to speed with everything. And I strongly believe that the remote working revolution is in its infancy. And in the next 5 to 10 years, we will see more of it. And I hope we can come together as a community and establish good ideas and practices to make more organizations remote capable. And before I finish, let me back up the tape a bit here. I want to list my reasons why you should do remote work in the first place. Why go through all these steps and challenges? It opens up for a much more flexible life as an employee. You have the opportunity to travel more. You can see more places of the world or in your region without giving up vacation days. You have a better ability to work from home and be more productive. There's always a couple of times here and there when you need to do that. You either have to accept a parcel or there's a handyman coming by fixing something. You can vary your work and life more. You can escape the day-to-day distractions from the office and go somewhere where you feel more inspired. It could be the mountains or the sea. Go somewhere quiet and calm where you can string together a couple of focused hours while working on something that requires a lot of concentration. But also, as an employer, there are benefits. The whole recruitment game changes. All of a sudden, your recruitment pool becomes global. In theory, you have the ability to hire candidates from all over the world. Not only does your pool of candidates become bigger, you also become a more attractive place to work at if you have talented and more diverse teams. And lastly, if you ever become big enough to expand into other regions or markets, you will already have a strong culture of remote work in your organization, and you have the ability to efficiently communicate and work together and produce great work without requiring everyone to be in the same room. So, to summarize what I've been talking about, tools. Tools are just tools. Remember that. Reflect on how you use them. You need transparency to build trust and manage expectations. Experiment with and iterate the work process. Start in a small group. Build a strong culture with remote working in mind. This is key to succeeding with this is key to building a strong foundation for doing remote work in your organization. Don't always be available to avoid fatigue. Work smarter, not harder. Remember to meet in person from time to time. And don't be afraid of large time zone differences. Embrace them. That is all from me. I think we have time for questions. Otherwise, you can reach me on these details, and I will be available at the conference. Thank you.